The smell had been there for weeks, growing stronger each day, until the residents could bear it no longer. The elderly carpenter crawled into the narrow space beneath the house, his wife holding the lantern at the doorway. When he emerged, his face was pale, his hands trembling. "There is a body under the house," he whispered. Within minutes, the street filled with 200 souls, and a father's cry pierced the evening air. "My God, it is my child!" What happened on Merchant Avenue in the spring of 1889? Hello everyone! Before we start, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment with where you are from and what time you are watching. Your support helps us bring you more stories like this. Now, let us begin. It was Thursday, the 9th of May, 1889, in the city of Cleveland, Ohio, in the United States of America. Spring had arrived with mild temperatures and clear skies. The streets of the South Side district were busy with the sounds of industry, steel mills humming in the distance, railway bells clanging at the depot, and the steady rhythm of cartwheels on cobblestones. Cleveland was a city of remarkable growth, its prosperity built on manufacturing, rail transport, and commerce. Immigrants from across Europe had settled in its neighborhoods, seeking work in factories and yards, building modest lives in rented rooms and terraced houses along narrow streets. On Merchant Avenue, near the Tremont School, lived the Thompson family at number 24. Mr. Jacob Thompson worked as a brakeman on the railroad, demanding labor that kept him away for long hours. His wife cared for their 3 children, Maggie, aged 7, Charlie, aged 4, and a baby, not yet 3. Maggie was known in the neighborhood for her dark eyes and cheerful manner. She attended school each morning and returned home at midday for lunch. On this particular Thursday, she left the schoolyard at 11 o'clock, as she always did. She chatted with friends, stopped to watch a girl try a new tricycle, and turned toward home. By noon, she had not appeared at the dinner table. By evening, the entire city was searching for her. 1 month later, the smell would lead them to the truth. Maggie Thompson had been born on the 23rd of October, 1881, in St. Louis, Missouri. In 1888, her family moved to Cleveland, where her father had secured work on the railroad. The Thompsons were a working family, respectable and well regarded by their neighbors. They lived modestly, as most families in the district did. Mrs. Thompson kept the home clean, mended clothes, and prepared simple meals. The children played in the street under her watchful eye. Mr. Thompson worked long shifts, sometimes overnight, returning home tired and covered in soot and grease from the rail yards. Maggie attended the Tremont School, a short walk from Merchant Avenue. She was a bright child, well-behaved, and known to her teachers as attentive and polite. Her schoolmates described her as friendly. She collected buttons, as many girls did, trading them with friends and keeping them in a small tin box. On Thursday mornings, lessons began at 8 o'clock and ended at 11. Children were dismissed to return home for their midday meal, expected back by 1 o'clock for afternoon classes. On the morning of the 9th of May, Maggie left home as usual. The weather was fine. She wore a dark calico dress with a white pinafore, black stockings, and laced boots. Her hair was tied with a ribbon. At 11 o'clock, when the school bell rang, she gathered her things and walked out with the other children. Several of her classmates saw her along Fairfield Street. She stopped to watch a friend ride a tricycle. She laughed. She waved. At the corner of Fairfield and Merchant Avenue, she turned toward home. It was a distance of less than 200 yards. The street was familiar to her. She had walked it every day. By noon, Mrs. Thompson became concerned. Maggie had not come home. She checked the yard, then the neighboring houses. She called her daughter's name. No answer came. She walked to the school, thinking perhaps Maggie had remained behind. The teachers told her that Maggie had left with the others at 11 o'clock and had not returned. Mrs. Thompson's worry deepened. She asked neighbors if they had seen her. No one had. By early afternoon, she contacted the police. Within 3 hours, the entire city force was searching. Railway stations were closely watched, streets were patrolled. Every possible lead was investigated. A report emerged that at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, a woman had been seen leading a child resembling Maggie across the Central Way Bridge toward the east side of the city. The information was given to a bridgekeeper by a young girl who claimed to know Maggie personally. Officers were dispatched immediately. Despite their efforts, no trace of the child or the mysterious woman was found. When Mr. Thompson returned home from his shift and learned of his daughter's disappearance, he went out searching immediately. He was joined by colleagues and friends from the depot. They walked the rail yards, checked abandoned buildings, and questioned anyone they encountered. A telegraph boy at the Lakeshore Railroad office named James Campbell told police that at approximately 2:30 on Thursday afternoon, he had seen a stout woman in front of the depot, with a boy and a little girl of about 7 years of age. The woman was dressed entirely in black and carried a brown satchel. The girl appeared unwell and was crying. The woman purchased candy to keep her quiet. Officers pursued the lead, but as Maggie had been in good health when last seen, they considered it improbable that she would have fallen ill in such a short time. Over the following days, the search continued without success. The Thompson home became a place of constant movement. Friends, neighbours and relatives came and went at all hours, bringing little bits of news, fresh rumours, or simply their sympathy. Many had spent long hours searching nearby streets, rail yards and riverbanks. On Saturday, the 11th of May, a meeting was held at the Jennings Avenue Church. Local people gathered to discuss additional ways to locate the missing child. Everyone in attendance expressed deep sympathy for the Thompson family. The meeting ended with a resolution authorizing Chief Schmitz to offer a reward of $100 to anyone who could provide information leading to Maggie Thompson's recovery, whether she was found alive or deceased. Over the following weeks, newspapers carried little beyond rumors. Some reports claimed Maggie had been seen in Cincinnati, others in Pittsburgh, some in Ontario in Canada. For Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, these were agonizing days filled with uncertainty and fear. It was as if the earth had swallowed her. On Sunday, the 9th of June, exactly 1 month since Maggie Thompson had gone missing, the residents of number 42 Merchant Avenue could no longer bear the dreadful smell that had been hanging about their house. For weeks it had been growing worse. That night it became unbearable. The house belonged to Mr. Henry Luth, an elderly German carpenter who lived there with his wife and their 16-year-old son, Otto. At the rear of the property was a small apartment rented to Mr. Joseph Chevelle and his wife, Clarissa. That evening, Mrs. Luth, who had recently returned home from hospital, urged her husband to find out what was causing the terrible smell. Mr. Luth agreed to go down into the cellar. His wife held a lantern from the doorway. There were 2 low, narrow cellars beneath the house. Mr. Luth crawled into the smaller one. After a few minutes he emerged. He was pale and shaking, his eyes wide with horror. "What have you found?" his wife asked him in German. Mr. Luth replied that there was a body under the house. Mrs. Luth ran out into the street and called to Constable Steen, who happened to be passing on his beat. When the constable saw the opening to the cellar, he realized he could not fit through himself. He asked Mr. Luth to go back inside and bring out what he had found. Mr. Luth did as he was asked and pulled the body toward a window. It was the body of a young girl. It had been dismembered and was already in a state of decomposition. Police headquarters were notified at once. Within minutes, Captain Gates, Detective Douglas, Lieutenant English, and several other officers, along with the coroner, Mr. Walsh, arrived at 42 Merchant Avenue. News of the discovery had already spread quickly throughout the neighborhood. By the time the officials reached the house, the street was crowded with onlookers. In less than 10 minutes, nearly 200 people had gathered outside, murmuring in shock and disbelief. Clothing found next to the body seemed to match the clothes Maggie had been wearing when she disappeared. Mr. Thompson was notified. He came to the house immediately. He was shown a hat that had been found. He became very emotional, threw his hands up in the air, and cried out, "My God, it is my child!" Mr. Thompson tried to break away from the officers and force his way into the cellar. 3 officers managed to hold him back. It was obvious to everyone that he was a man driven by grief. By this time, the crowd outside had grown agitated and began to shout threats against the occupants of the house. When Mr. Thompson cried out several times, "Lynch the murderer!" the cry was taken up by everyone. For a moment, it seemed the crowd might push themselves into the property. Officers managed to push them back and continued to restrain Mr. Thompson, who was still attempting to reach the cellar. All the occupants of number 42 Merchant Avenue were taken into custody and brought to the 9th Precinct station. The police believed that someone among them must know something about the crime, since the body could only have been placed where it was found by entering through one of their cellars. When Mr. Thompson was asked if he knew the residents of the house, he replied that he had never met or spoken to anyone there and had had no reason to suspect them. When officers questioned the neighbours, they described the Luth family as quiet and respectable, a German family with 2 children. No one knew anything about Mr. and Mrs. Chauvel. All 5 occupants were placed under police guard while the investigation continued. Mr. Luth told officers that he was a carpenter by trade and had been working since January in the city of Fremont, about 85 miles from Cleveland. He said that during that time he had returned home only once, until a week ago when he came back for good. He added that he soon learned of complaints from his tenants about the terrible smell in the house. By Sunday, the smell had become so unbearable that he and his wife decided to investigate. He explained that there were 2 cellars under the house, both of which had been checked several times before by others, but as he was quite small, he was able to crawl into one of them while his wife held a light for him. If you are finding this case as compelling as we are, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. It truly helps us continue researching and sharing these forgotten stories from history. We also read every comment, so let us know your thoughts on this case below. Now, let us continue. The police turned their attention to Mr. and Mrs. Luth's 16-year-old son, Otto. He worked in a cigar shop, and during his father's absence in Fremont, and while his mother was in hospital, he had lived with his brother John. He had moved back in with his parents on the 1st of June. Otto told officers that during the time he lived with his brother, he would frequently visit his parents' house just to see that everything was all right. He said that around the 16th of May, he began to notice the unpleasant smell. Although Otto replied to officers' questions, it was obvious he was not saying very much, as if he had something he was trying to hide. After a time, his confidence broke. He confessed. Otto Luth told officers that at around 11:30 on the day Maggie Thompson disappeared, he was standing at the gate of his home near the corner of Fairfield and Merchant Avenue. Maggie passed by on her way home from school, and in a friendly, childish way, asked if he had any buttons she could have for her collection. Otto said he replied, "Come with me and I will give you some." She followed him without hesitation into the bedroom of the house. Once inside, he suddenly seized her, threw her onto the bed, and despite her cries and struggles, he assaulted her. He said he then became overwhelmed by fear of the consequences of what he had done. He grabbed a hammer that lay nearby and struck her on the head. He removed her clothing, wrapped the body in bedclothes, and left it lying on the bed. He said he left it there for 6 days, from Thursday until the following Wednesday, as his father was working in Fremont and his mother was in hospital. No one entered the house during that time. On Wednesday, he took the body from the bed, wrapped it in some coverings, and dragged it down to the cellar. After signing the confession, Otto appeared completely crushed. Over and over he kept murmuring, "Oh, my dear mother." Otto Luth was formally arrested and charged with murder. The trial was scheduled to begin on Monday, the 21st of October, 1889, before Judge Solders. However, due to an illness affecting Mrs. Thompson and the difficulty of selecting an impartial jury for such a widely publicized case, testimony did not commence until Monday, the 9th of December. Otto was represented by Mr. W. S. Kerewish. The prosecution was conducted by Prosecutor Hayden. Many people wanted to see the proceedings, and there was a large crowd outside the courthouse. Inside, the gallery was restless. Judge Solders asked Sheriff Sawyer and Deputy Sheriff Goldstell to keep all spectators in order. Although Otto had already confessed to the murder, he entered a plea of not guilty. His attorneys argued that the confession he had given to police should not be allowed as evidence. claiming he had not made it voluntarily. They maintained that Otto had been frightened, confused, and too young to fully understand what he was saying. Judge Solders ruled that the confession would remain in evidence, leaving it to the jury to decide how much weight it should carry. Many witnesses described how little Maggie Thompson had left school that day and was seen walking home along Fairfield Street and Merchant Avenue. Neighbours said they had seen her along the route. Local shopkeepers gave accounts of her movements and said she seemed particularly cheerful. Mr. Henry Luth testified that he discovered her body in the cellar as he had gone there to investigate a terrible smell that had troubled the house. Police officers spoke of the scene and explained how all the occupants were arrested. Medical witnesses, including the coroner, Mr. Walsh, provided details about the condition of the body and the cause of death. Mrs. Eva Baker testified that she had done the washing for the Luth family for about 5 years. As she was preparing for Mr. Luth to return from Fremont and Mrs. Luth to return from hospital, she went to the house to see if everything was in order. She went into one of the rooms where she saw a mattress that was stained and crawling with worms. She told the court she could not believe what she had seen and immediately spoke to Otto and asked him what he had done, to which he replied, "I have not done anything." She said she showed him the mattress and told him that Mrs. Chevelle had not been able to eat for 3 days because of the smell and that he must immediately attend to it. The next day she returned and noticed he had cleaned the mattress and put it in a corner. The defense argued that Otto suffered from epilepsy, a condition that ran in his family. His mother testified that she had come to the United States from Germany in 1864. She stated that both she and her mother suffered from epilepsy and that Otto had inherited the same condition. The defense called several medical witnesses and asked them to explain to the jury the nature of epilepsy and to give their opinion as to whether it could be regarded as a form of insanity. At the time, epilepsy was poorly understood and often considered to be a kind of mental disorder rather than a disease of the nerves. It was widely believed that epileptic fits could leave a person temporarily insane or unaware of their actions. The defense hoped the jury would see Otto's illness as evidence that he had not been fully responsible for what he had done. The prosecution countered by arguing that there was no evidence Otto had had an epileptic seizure at the time of the crime, and that his actions showed careful planning and awareness, not confusion or loss of control. On the 29th of December, the prosecution and defense summed up their cases. After 6 hours of tense deliberation, the jury returned with its verdict. Otto Luth was found guilty of first-degree murder. Judge Solders sentenced him to death and announced that he would be hanged on the 16th of April. The courtroom erupted in anguish. Otto's mother, overcome by grief, started shouting in German. The murder of little Maggie Thompson was widely regarded as one of the most shocking and brutal crimes in Ohio's history. Yet many people hesitated at the idea of executing a teenage boy, particularly one who suffered from epilepsy, a condition thought by some to affect the mind and behavior. In the days that followed, Otto's defense team filed an appeal, requesting a new trial and a stay of execution. The court granted a temporary reprieve. However, when the Court of Appeal and Ohio Supreme Court refused to overturn the verdict, another stay of execution was arranged until the 29th of August, which allowed the attorneys to petition the Board of Pardons. This attempt also failed. A final appeal was made directly to Governor Campbell, but he also denied clemency. Despite repeated legal efforts and public debate over executing a teenager with a medical condition, the sentence remained in place. On the 29th of August, 1890, Otto Luth was hanged. The following day, his body was returned to his parents for burial. The file was sealed. The newspapers moved to other stories. Merchant Avenue continued as it always had, with carts rolling past and children playing in the street. Years later, the name Maggie Thompson was spoken only in brief, if at all. The house at number 42 stood for many more years, occupied and occupied again. Behind the windows, kettles boiled and doors closed. Beyond that, only silence.